Hi everyone, welcome to Truth Bombs and Tea. Today's topic is a juicy one, and that's why it's going to be a two-part series. I try to keep the videos 20 minutes or a little bit less, between 15 and 20. I have good feedback from the people in my community and the newsletter that like a 15-20 minute episode is their preference, because when they're driving to an appointment, or if they're starting dinner, that sort of thing, it's a really good little chunk of time, not too long and not too short. So because this is such a meaty topic, and I'll tell you what the topic is in a sec, I'm going to split them, and you might find that I do that moving into the future, so that I can keep it nice and tight, and we can do a part one and part two. So today's video is titled "Fixed Mindset, Are Your Thoughts Ruining Your Life?" And it kind of sounds dramatic, but it's not. And this video, I'm going to share with you why having a fixed mindset can literally ruin your life. Okay. So we'll start off by diving into what exactly is a fixed mindset and what is a growth mindset. Then we're going to look at the real benefits, researched back, proven benefits of having a growth mindset, and then the research findings about the negative impact of having a fixed mindset. Okay. Part two is going to be okay, now that we know what it is, and I'm also going to give you some examples. I'm going to walk you through some so you can see it in action. Now that we know all of that, how do I start to develop a growth mindset, or develop a better one if I've already got some traits, which hopefully you do, of a growth mindset? Okay. So first of all, we're going to look at what is a fixed mindset. So fixed mindsets tend to be very rigid in thinking. It tends to be people who believe that, their intelligence is fixed, their skill set is fixed. Like, you heard people say, I was just born that way. Okay. Whether that be something negative or positive, right? I'm born that way. I can't change it. I've always been stubborn. That's the way it is. Okay. So people with fixed mindsets tend to be very, fixed. So they think something's black or white. They don't see the in betweens, the shades of grey. They think something's right or they think it's wrong. There's no possibility of another way, right? So they either think one way and they're not open to other opinions or experiences. Okay. Even if they listen to it, they kind of won't adopt it, or they'll only do it through pressure or coercion, right? So fixed is what it says. It is quite a rigid way of doing it. It is the shoulds. You should do it. You have to do it. Any sort of new information or new experiences are kind of dismissed. And the comfort zone, this is what we've always done, let's keep doing it, there's nothing wrong with it, is kind of the vibe. Okay. Whereas a growth mindset is more open to things. It looks at the shades of grey. Like, nobody's 100% right, nobody's 100% wrong. There's probably a little bit of give and take. There's shades of grey in between. Okay. You don't, have to do something. You could, or you couldn't do it. Okay. So there's more open possibilities and solutions. They're more likely to collaborate. They're more likely to take suggestions and try them out. Pardon me. They are looking at life through the lens of it's a learning experience. So, whereas someone with a fixed mindset might think that's wrong, you've made a mistake, someone with a growth mindset might say, okay, that didn't go great. What can I learn from it? So, there's a lot more creativity, there's a lot more collaboration and problem solving than a fixed mindset. Okay. So the latest research, particularly over since, say, 2020 to 2025, has really focused in on the huge benefits of developing a growth mindset. Now, babies are not born with a fixed mindset. Okay. As you can see, They are open to all sorts of things. I mean, eating dirt is as good as eating, ice cream. They'll do it. So they're hugely, widely, beautifully open. And it's only through the caregiving of people around them that they tend to then go into this fixed state, right? But this fixed state is shown not to be good for us. Okay, we all have a little bit of it, I guess. I might think that my way of, say, organizing a party is better than my husband's, but not in a sort of demanding way. And certainly, I take a lot of input from him, and we kind of collaborate. But we all have a tiny bit of it. It's when it becomes more of our whole persona that it becomes dysfunctional. So, studies have shown that if you have a growth mindset, you're more resilient because you don't think, I failed. You think, okay, how can I improve on that? Okay. So, you can also cope with things better. So, if somebody criticizes you, or you perceive it to be criticism, you're more likely to be open to it and listen to it. You may not take it on board, but you're more likely to listen to it. So you look at setbacks as such, as opportunities, whereas a fixed mindset person looks at it as a failure and a catastrophe. So studies have also shown that on a physiological level, you have lower stress and lower rates of anxiety. And when you think about that, that makes sense because you cope with emotional challenges and pressure more easily because you look for more creative solutions and you don't view that pressure as, final or finite or rigid. You've got increased productivity and innovation. So, because you aren't just looking at one idea or one viewpoint, and you've got a nice wide lens, you can see those other possibilities. Okay, you can see more solutions, you can see more opportunities. So, you can improve your emotions because you're not quite as stressed, thinking, well, this is the only answer. And if I don't get this answer, it's going to be a catastrophe. Okay, so your emotions are far more regulated because you are able to cope better and you also can see solutions across the board rather than no solution because the one that's right is not available. Okay, of course, that piggybacks onto better problem solving. So rather than look at a situation and say that shouldn't be happening, you say, well, it is happening regardless of whether I want it to or not. So what's the best move from here? And then improved interpersonal skills. We've all been with those people and been in discussion where we're trying to talk about different things and they're like, no, that's not a good idea. No, don't want to do that. No, that's never going to work. No, etc., etc. So frustrating because they're not even open to anything that you're saying. That's a fixed mindset person. And you tend to find that those people with fixed mindsets tend to have a lot of problems in their relationships and they don't have very close relationships because it's kind of their way or the highway. Okay. So, in fact, neuroscience has now shown that when they've mapped the brain, different parts of the brain light up for people with a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. There's a lot more activity in certain parts of the brain and they can measure it. So they can look at the different neural networks that light up and the creative problem solving part of the brain lights up in people with growth mindsets, whereas there's very little activity there for people with fixed mindsets. Okay, so that's all the great benefits of growth mindset. And I'm sure that you would agree with me and agree with the scientists that living a life like that with all those benefits sounds good and sounds like you would have, an enjoyable kind of creative adventure of a life if you could adopt those. So, fixed mindset. Here we go. So, why it could be ruining your life, all those around you. Okay, so somebody else may not be you. You might be very growth mindset orientated, but or are in relationship to someone who's fixed mindset. So people with fixed mindset, those extreme thinking, the black and white, the catastrophizing, if something goes wrong, it's a monumental mistake, instead of a learning opportunity, tend to have these factors, right? They're perfectionists. So fixed mindsets, they're terrified of making mistakes. Even if it's a little mistake, they quickly try and brush over it so nobody notices, and low betide somebody that points it out, even if it's in a funny way, right? I remember talking to a friend of mine who was following me to a particular place because she didn't know how to get there. But she was like 10 kilometers behind me, and I had to keep pulling over. And when I had said to her, I couldn't even find you in the traffic, do you kind of understand the concept of following someone? She did not take that well. Okay, even though it was a joke, but even though it was factual that I had to stop 6 times. Instead of saying, oh, sorry, I'm a nervous driver or whatever, she, was not happy with it. So rather than risking themselves looking foolish, they either don't try anything because they could fail, or if they do fail, it's like a catastrophe instead of just a learning opportunity. Fixed mindset people do not take well to feedback, as I just said to you about my friend, okay? So they tend to see any feedback as like a personal attack on them, okay? Whereas someone with a growth mindset, they'll look and go, yeah, you were right. Like I was driving super, super slow. I have been in a car accident or something before, so I was overly cautious. I'll try to make sure I stick a little bit closer behind you next time we go somewhere. If they don't like feedback, they'll take it as a criticism and react badly, either by, turning the tables and trying to attack you for it, or they will, do the passive aggressive sulky bums or whatever. So instead of thinking, how can I improve? They think, I'm being attacked here and I've got to defend myself. So another tendency of fixed mindset people is the comparison trap, right? So everything is a competition to prove that they're worthy, right? Or that they're superior. So other people's successes become threats, even their own children or their own, brothers or sisters or their own parents, right? So people with a growth mindset realize that like a rising tide lifts all boats. In other words, there's room at the table for everybody, and I'm really happy for your success and you're really happy for mine. People with a fixed mindset believe in that scarcity mindset. There's only so much praise, money, status, love to go around, and I got to get my share, right? So everything's a competition. And then they're not happy for, people around them either, because they think, oh, well, if they're getting the praise, I'm not getting the praise. If they're getting the money, I'm missing out on the money. If they're getting the recognition, I'm missing out on the recognition. And then the giving up guarantee. So people with fixed mindsets won't even attempt anything new on the off chance that they're not good at it or they think they might fail. So this is where the comfort zone leaves them there to wither and die. So they'll only do what they know that they're super good at so that they can not worry about those other three traits that I told you about, okay? And then when things get tough, they give up super quick. So, say for example, somebody's learning how to use Excel, and because they're comparative, because they're perfectionistic, and because they don't like feedback and all of that, as soon as they find that they don't take to it super well, they just go, "Oh, the computer's stupid. It's not working. Oh, the person who taught me is an idiot, and they're not doing it. Nobody's supporting me here. I can't do it." So those four things, as you can imagine, can really ruin somebody's life if that's the kind of patterns that you're into. So let me show you a couple more examples before we finish up. So say in your romantic relationship, you and your partner are fighting about money and, future goals and things like that. A growth mindset couple would say, oh, we're not really getting anywhere here and we're kind of getting pretty heated. So let's take a time out maybe and think about some ways that we can learn to manage our finances better. Then maybe they come back together. They think, look, how about we get a couple of really highly recommended books and also maybe go to like a financial planner or maybe even a counselor if your money stories are very different. And so, say we fast forward 6 months' time through the financial counselor or the counselor, whatever it is. They've read their books. They've kind of turned it into a date night where they, do a couple of chapters over a glass of wine and a pizza. They've gone to get support, and 6 months' time they're like on the same page, and they are, part way towards their financial goals already. Whereas a fixed mindset person or a couple would say, "Oh my God, all we do is fight about money. Your ideas about money are dumb, and I'm not going to spend the rest of my life saving for a rainy day." And the other one's like, "Well, your ideas are stupid because you just spend money like water. And if we were supposed to be together, this wouldn't be so hard." And they have a separation, right? So these examples are not, based on real life things, but I'm showing you that the kind of mindset could lead to these things. All right, so let's move on to the family dynamic. All right, so say you've got a child at school, in high school or primary school or whatever, and they're really struggling with maths. Someone with a growth mindset, those parents might say, "Wow, okay, whatever's happening at school is not working for her. So let's go talk to the teacher first, get some feedback. And then if she needs further support, we'll get a tutor in to help her. And at least we'll know what areas because the teacher has told us about it. And let's talk to her and just let's have a discussion, unless she's like, in grade 2 or something. But say it's in high school, you have a chitty chat and say, how can we best support you? This is what we were thinking. What do you reckon? Blah, blah, blah. They make a plan, they execute the plan. And in maybe say 6 months' time, she's, a lot more comfortable. She's caught up. Okay. A fixed mindset couple might say, "Yeah, well, I was never good at maths at school. It's just, that's just the way it is." And the teachers probably aren't doing anything to help her because my teachers never did. Okay. And they might just say, "Look, you're just not a maths person. Dad wasn't a maths person, so you're not a maths person." Okay. So the child is kind of left to struggle and then feels like, "Oh, okay, well, I'm probably just dumb at maths because my dad wasn't good at it either." So they're kind of the different scenarios. All right. And the final one I want to share is, say, a workplace scenario. So, say you're at work and you're in charge of a task or a project, and you do it, you present it, or you complete it. And then whoever's having a look at it says, like, "That's not the standard that we really required. What I really wanted you to do was X, Y, Z." Someone with a growth mindset would say, "Oh, look, you know, wires crossed, didn't realize XYZ was the way to go. Next time before I do it, I'll just check in with you." And, you use this as the opportunity to get better at that task. So, yeah, making it a learning opportunity and sort of not taking it personally. And you can guess where I'm going to go with the fixed mindset, right? So, the same feedback is given, except the person might say, well, a couple of things. They might say, "Oh, I'm terrible at this task or this presentation and I'm never going to get any better. He's probably going to pick on me. My boss is going to pick on me every single time." Or it could be deflection, like, "Wasn't me, they never told me that that's what they wanted." Or, you know, "My team members let me down," or whatever. Okay. So defensive, blaming, criticizing, and not taking accountability and not using it as a learning opportunity. So hopefully you can see that there are many good reasons, mental, physical, emotional reasons to develop a growth mindset. And conversely, I hope you can see that having a fixed mindset, I mean, every now and then we all fall prey to it, but it's to be aware of it and to start to develop a growth mindset, because those negative impacts can really ruin your life and your relationships. Anything from the relationships through to your own health, through to even your career opportunities and any kind of wonderful opportunities pass you by because of this mindset and this behavior. So in the next video, I'm going to go through how to start to develop a growth mindset, or how to build on the foundation of the growth mindset that you already have. So until next time, please subscribe. A lot of people think that if you subscribe, you have to pay. You don't. It's totally free to subscribe. So hit the subscribe button. If you like the videos, be sure that you've put the bell notification on, because then it will have it in your feed, my next video. Otherwise, you've got to go search for it, and then also share it with somebody if you know that they need it. And until next time, let's make the rest of our life the very best of our life. Ciao.